listening to the Cars of Carlisle podcast, episode 48, Lisa Langley, Southern California Fun.
Cars of Carlisle is your favorite internationally downloaded podcast about all things automotive. Darren and his CFC team are ever searching for interesting automotive happenings, real stories about real car people, and fun features to inform and entertain you. Each week, the Cars of Carlisle crew brings you show topics ranging from car shows to team adventures to auto racing weekends to behind-the-scenes human interest stories from car nuts that live across town, across the country, or even across the globe. Come join the road trip.
Today, join Darren on his business trip to Los Angeles, where he talks cars and motorcycles with Southern California native Lisa Langley. Having spent her lifetime in the Riverside County area, just about an hour east of L.A., Lisa grew up in a motocross family with an energetic dad who ran a NAPA Auto Parts store and hot-rodded a 1940 Ford Coupe. To this day, Lisa still rides both on and off-road and appreciates anything with 2 or 4 wheels. Lisa's family has direct ties to a one-of-a-kind motorcycle in the garage of a well-known California car guy, Jay Leno, of NBC Tonight Show fame. Listen in and find out all about Lisa meeting Mr. Leno and her dad getting to hang out among Jay's spectacular car collection. Find your Ray-Ban wayfarers, wax the surfboard, and grab your car keys. It's time to go to sunny Southern California. So let's get revved up.
Hello and welcome back, Cubers, to your favorite informative automotive podcast. I am your host, Darren. It is good to be back home on the East Coast. I got to spend the week on the left side of the country, and while there, met up with a really cool person. I can't wait for you to get to know Lisa. She is so down to earth, comes from a great family, and loves all things with a motor. And just such a dynamic and fun individual. Okay, for this week, the trivia question has to do with a automotive motorcycle related person that comes up in the interview. And Lisa will mention his name around a third of the way through the interview. So that's sort of the clue. So the question is, what famous personality, motorsport person who's been in X Games, has driven for Subaru, is mentioned by Lisa in this interview? Answer at the end. I think you're really going to enjoy this episode. In fact, in about 6.5 to 7 hours north of L.A. is Santa Clara, California, which is a good segue to say thank you to Gary, Lou, and my friends at Man Engineering, man-engineering.com. You will find everything and anything as far as quality parts. These are parts that they, with the engineering background, have really discerned what are the best parts that will make your Subaru faster, stronger, better handling. They put a lot of effort into picking the very best of the best. So thanks to Man Engineering for their corporate sponsorship, and thank you for helping make my Subaru all that much better. Okay, so without further ado, let's jump to the interview. Bear with me, forgive. We were actually at an outdoor cafe, and at one point you hear a California Highway Patrol helicopter come screaming overhead, probably following somebody on the freeway, and there's some ambient sound and what have you, but it was just such an easy conversation, and Lisa is just such a good-hearted, fun person. So I'm excited to share this great conversation with you. Let's go now. Hello, Cubers, and welcome to this episode of Cars of Carlisle. I left Carlisle, Pennsylvania. It was around 39 degrees, and I find myself today, which happens to be the anniversary of Cars of Carlisle. We're celebrating 1 year, and what better place to be but in Southern California. And I am sitting at an outdoor patio having a great lunch with a newly found friend of mine, Lisa Langley. She is going to be our guest today. Lisa, hello and welcome.
Well, hi there. Thank you for having me.
And she is a native Riverside County resident. Grew up in Southern California. We are about an hour east of Los Angeles.
Yes, that's correct.
And we are in the beautiful Corona area. And this has been home to her. We're going to hear a lot about what it was like growing up in Southern California. She had a father that was in the auto parts business, and she's been a bit of a gearhead since her young teen years. So really excited. And to that too, Lisa, you and I talked yesterday how it's so important that I want this to be all generations, all eras of cars, male, female, gender, that really there shouldn't be anything where it's very inclusive and it's one community. It shouldn't matter where anyone comes from.
Oh, I would agree. Because I started my interest in cars at an early age.
Yeah, let's get started. Go ahead.
Yes. I mentioned to you, my father owned an auto parts store, started in 1970, and when I was about 9 years old at the time, and by the time I was 15 and could get a work permit, I was there working just so I could be part of his world. My father's always been into cars. His first car was a Ford Coupe To when he was in high school in the 50s, and that was kind of an old beater car at that point.
Right.
But he had a lot of great stories in it. Him and my mother are high school sweethearts. They met at 15, and he used to take her on dates in that car. And so he was very passionate about it, and at some point he found himself the perfect fixer-upper, and literally took it down to the frame and touched every single bolt on that car. And when I say every single bolt, he even polished every single bolt.
You told me it was best in show many times.
Yes. He took 5 years to do the rebuild on it. And before it was even done, he was winning best unfinished.
Okay.
And by the time it was done, it was always a guaranteed best in show. It was just beautiful. He made everything as original, no fancy extra electronics, nothing like that. Just
it's a true hot rod.
True hot rod.
And Lisa shared the picture with me yesterday on her phone, and she has a lot of great photos on Facebook. So what we'll try to do is, if she can share some of those with me when I get back to Pennsylvania, we'll include that on the Instagram for the week that we have her episode out there.
That would be great. It was just a beautiful, beautiful car.
And you talked to your dad just last night. He's pretty excited about you
he's
being on the show and talking about everything.
He's thrilled, yes, because the whole family is just so passionate about this car. When my dad retired, he decided to sell the car, and luckily he sold it to a buddy of his. and the buddy still lets him take it to a car show every now and then.
Okay.
Can you believe it? We've got it's typical Southern California. We've got a police helicopter.
Highway patrol, is that what it is?
Yes, overhead right now.
So yes, Cubers, that's a rotored. There it is. There goes the helicopter.
There it goes. Okay.
There go chips. Okay.
Anyway, my dad sold the car to a friend of his who still lets him use it from time to time. And I've always said, if I ever win the lottery, I'm buying that car back. It was just such a beautiful car.
Good. Just offer double price and move on. Yeah.
That's right.
Make it that attractive.
It's worth it, because even my dad's friend refers to it as George's car. It just has my dad's blood, sweat, and tears built into it, and that it's just known as George's car.
Well, a big shout out to George if you're listening. I know that your daughter has spoken such great things about you, and I know that you said your parents live up in the Big Bear area.
Yes, up in the mountains. They retired up there.
What a great place to spend those years.
They even have car shows up there.
All right.
And and it's kind of a great destination for car clubs to head up there and be part of a summer car show. So
that'd be magnificent.
Yes.
Well, then I know that if we're staying near your teenage years, I was blown away when you showed me the photo of you on the motocross bike.
Yes. As a matter of fact, in the 70s and into the 80s in Southern California, there was a local racetrack here in Corona known as Corona Raceway, and all the high schools had high school motocross teams.
That's neat.
And I actually have 3 brothers and a sister. We're all a year apart, and so if you can imagine 4 kids in one family all being in high school together and all racing motorcycles together.
That's so cool.
And so I grew up on 2 wheels. To this day I still ride. And just a excellent way to grow up, around cars, around motorcycles. My family was into camping and off-roading, and so not only cars but dune buggies, jeeps, things like that. Just had a great childhood growing up around them, and believe it or not, my high school was like the champion for many years in a row. Wow. There was so many people out here that had bikes and liked to ride.
Right.
Because we're around some foothills, and a lot of people had these foothills almost in their backyard that they could ride their bike to, directly from their house. No need to trailer and go somewhere. Just hop on your bike and go. And so a lot of people in this area like to ride. Still friends with a lot of them, 40 plus years later,
And your daytime job is you're a fleet manager for a construction equipment company. And what's really interesting is adjacent on the property that is leased, there is a full motocross track.
Yes, as a matter of fact, Kawasaki has a practice track right next to our property that the professional motocrossers use as a practice track before the season starts. And you can't really see it, but across the freeway, there's I think Honda and Yamaha have practice tracks as well. So this
what makes this a hotbed then? Just because of the...
Well, I think I know there's been some really famous riders come out of this area.
Okay.
I think the name Travis Pastrana.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Most anybody knows him.
He's from Temecula, which is just down the road about 30 minutes. And
right.
So I don't know. There's something about these hills that just made it like a big backyard for people to practice and get really good. And it's definitely seen a lot of really famous riders come out of this area. So
well, I'm sure just over the last 40 years, this was a lot. We're sitting right now among a shopping area and nice restaurants, and we can all but see the freeway. But I'm sure this was mainly fields and
fields, orange groves, things like that. This area is known just for being wide open, and there's a lot of mining around here, actually.
Okay.
And I come from Riverside, which is, just about 20 minutes down the road, and that town is known for orange groves. But just a lot of, unincorporated areas that are easy to hop on a bike and go riding.
Sure.
So just a lot of fun. Great place to grow up.
Absolutely. And Cars of Carlisle listeners from all around the U.S., there's a mystique about Southern California, obviously. Even for those of us that grew up on the East Coast, it seems like Southern California, I personally equate it to the Beach Boys and the surf life and Little Deuce Coupe and of course hot rods and street racing and all these other things. And with listeners now from all corners of the globe, everyone knows about California. Everyone knows about Southern California. And I think it's so interesting to be able to talk with someone who has spent their life here and grew up in a lot of that culture, immersed in that, if you will.
Well, it's kind of an ideal place, only because we're an hour away from the mountains where you can go skiing and an hour away from the beach right here. And just a couple hours away is the desert. Yeah. I've been to Pennsylvania. I think it's a beautiful place myself. Just breathtakingly beautiful. I couldn't believe all the beautiful, beautiful cornfields.
Shades of green.
Oh yes, I've never seen so much green in my whole life. I loved it. And but this has been a good place to. I feel very fortunate that I grew up here as well.
Well, I love sitting here in an open air dining, wearing short sleeves at the end of March. I mean, that's to me, it's a great part of it.
It's perfect. Yes.
Well, the 40 Ford, that George's car, your dad's car. Are there other cars that maybe your brothers or that maybe boyfriends or things that have that just strike that memory of that was such a cool car?
Well, you know what? My dad, since he had this auto parts store, all his buddies that were the car guys came to him to get parts for him, things like that, and even my brothers kind of got into it a little bit. They went a little bit more kind of a 60s type of car.
Like muscle?
Yeah, okay. Muscle. One guy had one brother had a Barracuda.
Okay.
And another brother went for like a classic 60s station wagon. Okay. Kind of, we had one when we were growing up, just kind of...
was it wood paneled or simulated?
No, it was, believe it or not, it was actually kind of jacked up in the back,
okay.
Big wheels on the back, and it just looked like it could blow the doors off your mom's station wagon, you know,
sure, yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And had some good friends that were into the kind of rat rods.
Yes. They're still very popular.
Yes. My dad's cousin actually has a Woody, like a that, you know, the kind with the surfboards on it, and they go to Woody runs all up and down the beach. And he also has a little rat rod that you know, is like the great car for his son. You know, so a lot of good other cars. A guy that worked for my dad had a '57 Chevy.
Just a classic.
Just a classic is right. And he literally, I think, got that car when he was in high school working for my dad. And at that time, it was his daily driver because, you know,
Sure.
but he...
it was just a used vehicle at that point.
Exactly. And, you know, but now it's his baby, of course.
Oh, sure.
Of course. But the really good thing about growing up in this area, and not to mention the car business,
Sure.
is seeing these people that held on to their high school cars.
Yes.
And what they've done to them now. And like, wow, you know, 40 years ago, that car was really, you know, needed some work, and now it's just pristine and beautiful. And you know, I think I mentioned to you that you'll see a lot of older cars just as daily drivers around here.
We talked about that when I was leaving L.A. There was a 65 Impala that just blew my doors in. It just flying in, but you could tell it was just a daily driver.
Yeah. You know, we don't have the problem of the frame and the body rusting out here, because where we are, we hardly get rain, let alone snow.
Sure.
You know, snow is like, oh wow, looky, you know. Where I'm sure it's not quite that exciting for you.
Not at all.
But anyway, these people, they just keep these cars. You know, like I said, some are their daily drivers.
The car culture in Southern California, particularly L.A., and I mean, it is notorious. It's known all over the world. It's one of the best places to find the greatest cars.
Oh yeah.
From everything from restorations and classics to exotics. It's everything's here.
Yes, and you know, not just cars, motorcycles as well.
Good point. Yes.
Yes.
And being a rider, that's important.
Yes, I noticed that sort of thing. So.
Well, talk a little bit about. I love the story you said. You kept the Triumph, but got rid of the boyfriend. And
Oh yeah. It's funny. I was mentioning to Darren that as growing up, my father was always, you kids can ride in the dirt, but you know, don't go out on the street because it's dangerous. You know.
That was his one rule.
That was his one rule, exactly. And when I was about 51 years old, I started dating a guy that was into street bikes, and we would go out quite a bit, and he knew I knew how to ride, and he encouraged me to get my motorcycle license. And at 51 years old, I didn't want to tell my dad because I knew he'd be mad. And it took till I actually got my license that I finally told him, and of course he hit the roof, but he knew that I was enjoying myself and having a good time, because my boyfriend provided me a Triumph 1050 Tiger to ride, and we rode the wheels off our bikes. Almost every weekend we were out for about a 250-mile ride. Wow. And here in Southern California, you could do that almost all year.
That's right.
All year round.
That's right.
And a lot of great places, great trail, just highways to ride around here. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of the Ortega Highway, but it's a famous bike riding highway that's only 30 minutes from us right now.
Okay.
And takes you from here in Corona and Lake Elsinore area and drops you right at the beach.
Oh, wow.
And
twisties through the mountains.
Twisties through the mountains.
That sounds perfect. And
there are people on like cafe road racing style bikes that will pass you so fast you know, it's like a blur going by.
Wow.
That there's guys in full leathers, everything on this road that just are out there for the fun of it. And anyway, the story I had told you about the bike.
Yeah.
my boyfriend and I parted ways, but luckily he sold me the bike, so I kept the bike, and it was, just I had wonderful, wonderful memories of riding the bike, and but now I'm getting back into dirt bikes. So
okay, I was gonna and then maybe talk a little bit about that. I know you have an upcoming marriage, which is exciting, but tell a little about what's the two wheels that are in your garage now.
Well, it's so funny. About 42 years ago, I met my first love working at a motorcycle shop, and it was a Bultaco and a Suzuki shop. And right now he's got 4 bikes in my garage, and 2 of them are Bultacos, and he's really loves that old style Bultaco, and a lot of good memories for him riding them, the motocross racers and the trials bikes. So just a lot of nostalgia there, and the fact that we've kind of reconnected after 40 years and we're going to be doing some dirt bike riding, I'm just couldn't be happier. So
that is great.
And the marriage is just a bonus too.
Right. Your best friend, you have the same interests. I mean, what better is there?
Yeah, so
I'm happy for
you. I'm a grandmother, and not too many kids can say their grandma rides dirt bikes,
No.
So
you have a really interesting story that I think will blow away our listenership, and that is that there's some provenance to something that your grandfather built that now has wound up in a quasi-museum here in California with a very well-known personality. So go ahead.
Yes, well, I have this wonderful story where my grandfather on my mother's side was loved to tinker with steam engines, and he restored all kinds of steam cars, and this is back in starting in like the 40s and 50s. He was doing this, and he just had a real passion for any kind of steam engine. He even worked at a radiator shop.
Wow.
And anyway, he at some point he must have got this crazy idea, but he wanted to make a steam powered motorcycle, and of all things he found an old Harley, and I think it's like a 19 I want to say like a 32 Harley, but it's a kind of it looks like something that you'd almost see officers in the military riding, a kind of old,
very rudimentary.
Yes. Anyway, he got his hands on an old beat up Harley like that, and literally converted it to being a steam powered motorcycle, and so much so that it was so wonderful. He caught the attention of the local newspaper, who then caught the attention of many different magazines like Mechanics Illustrated. I have copies of a magazine with my aunt and uncle actually on the motorcycle on the cover of Mechanics Illustrated, and I think there was Popular Mechanics as well. But anyway, just great unique piece of machinery that he literally engineered everything how to make it work.
His brilliant mind at work. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And anyway, when he passed away, we kind of thought that maybe he'd given it to a museum or something, but it turns out many years later, we see it on the cover of a magazine, Easy Rider, that's all about, Harley riders. And evidently he had sold it to somebody, and it got kind of tucked in a corner somewhere, and many years later this person brought it out and kind of dressed it up a little bit, and it made the cover of Easy Rider. Well, a few more years go by, and around here there's a very well-known personality, a former host of The Tonight Show, Jay Leno, and he's known for his car collection.
Oh, yeah.
And it is so large that he actually has, a separate facility that he...
Well, he has a TV show now, the Jay Leno's Garage. And
Yes, exactly. And he invites people to come tour his garage.
Oh, Jay, if you are listening, we're glad to come out.
Yes, yes. And anyway, a friend of my dad's who knew the history of all this said, George, your father-in-law's motorcycle now belongs to Jay Leno. And when I heard that, I'm just like, well, we got to reach out to Jay Leno.
Yes.
So I actually took made a photocopy of an old picture and sent it to him at the Tonight Show.
Oh, wow.
And 2 weeks later, I get a phone call at work one day, and it is Jay Leno on the phone saying that he is so excited to find the original owners, the person that made this, and would love to talk more about it. And anyway, I got him to talk to my dad. I even made him a photo album of all the pictures I had of it and sent it off to him. And he actually invited us down to the Tonight Show, gave us great seats, and we got to do a little meet and greet with him afterwards.
Wow.
And so it was pretty exciting.
Yeah. He said such a nice guy.
Such a nice guy and wonderful man. And anyway, a few years later, my dad actually had the pleasure of going on a tour of Jay Leno's garage, and I have a picture of him standing next to my grandfather's motorcycle.
We'll definitely put that picture out too if you don't mind sharing it.
Yes. Anyway, it's just a really great story that, something my grandfather was tinkering with in his little garage, is now somebody's, special little collectible.
Yeah. And it's in great hands with Leno's garage.
Exactly. Jay Leno had told me that he had dumped about $25,000 into it just to kind of make it a little bit more modern, and so that it could, function properly. Mm-hmm. So definitely a one-of-a-kind, wonderful story. So
that's a great story. Thank you so much for sharing that, Lisa.
Yes, thank you.
Lisa is just so effervescent and so energetic. She was saying that she gets it honestly because her parents, when they go back to family, or I should say high school reunions and anything around the area or community, and they come back and see old friends, they're referred, if I remember this from yesterday, they refer to as the teenagers,
That's
right?
correct. They're 78 years old, and their friends call them the teenagers.
Full of energy, and nothing slows them down.
Exactly.
I think you said your dad doesn't realize his own age.
Correct. And I think he's definitely, that's rubbed off on me,
right.
Because I certainly...
Age is just a number.
Yeah, I may be a grandma, but it doesn't mean I have to act like one.
No way.
Yeah, but...
Go out and hit some tabletops and jump your bike. Well, I know maybe not like once was.
Yeah, well, I'm certainly not like those professional motocrossers you see out there, but just there's a lot of hills around here, and we have some fun riding out in the hills.
Well, why don't we... Actually, when I get back to PA, let's also include that photo of you on your bike.
Okay.
I love that. That was a great one we should put on Instagram, too.
That would be great. Kind of upbringing I had where you're around off-road vehicles, cars, and working at an auto parts store.
But you've lived a pretty magical life.
Well, yes. I feel like my family has definitely been blessed with getting to do a lot of things that most people don't, and because of that, our family is incredibly close, and to this day love doing things together. I don't think I mentioned this to you yesterday, but my family, we built a vacation home down in Mexico.
No, we didn't talk about that.
And down on the Sea of Cortez.
So Sea of Cortez.
Yeah, the Sea of Cortez. It's not the Pacific side of Mexico. It's also known as Baja California.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you fly or drive?
Well, believe it or not, my dad had a pilot's license, and there was times where we flew down there, but mainly we drive down there, and we'd take some dune buggies and motorcycles, and just go have a good old time riding on the beach, things like that.
Oh, wow.
Not things you can do
That's
here.
That's idyllic, yeah.
Yes, and to this day, my parents and my family still go down there and just have a wonderful time. So,
wow.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Another one of those things I told you, great way to grow up.
Absolutely, so blessed.
Yeah. Speaking of that,
please.
Growing up at an auto parts store, which, I started working there when I was 15. Every summer when I would be out of school, I'd be back there delivering auto parts for my dad. It kind of helped me into my career that I have right now.
Good point.
As Darren mentioned, I'm a fleet operations manager, but I've always been working around cars of some sort. I even told my dad at one point that I wanted to take over the auto parts business, and I think I said it to him at the wrong time when he was busy. I know I was about 19 years old, and he literally said to me, "Oh, Lisa, you're just a girl. Go do something else." And that's like a challenge. Don't tell me I can't do something, because I'm gonna go do it. And sure enough, I've made my entire career working in the automotive industry.
And a great career at that.
A great career at that. I was able to support a daughter being a single mom that way, and love what I do. Love the people I work around,
And it's obvious. People are drawn to you for that.
Well, it's I don't know, there's just something about, like-minded people. Everybody gets along great, and they see that I'm not just some dumb girl there, that I actually know what I'm talking about, things like that.
Absolutely.
It makes for lifelong friends, are also your co-workers. So
that's right. Come see us.
But I'm so happy to get to share some of my experiences with my friends in Pennsylvania.
Well, we've loved having you. To close, is there anything we talked about the fact that we have listeners all over the U.S. and Canada and many countries. Is there anything that you'd want to share with them on this perfect Southern California day, and about just life here and how you see things as far as car community and how it brings people together?
Well, you know what? I've seen something here recently that I really, really respect, and that's some schools are getting so technical with teaching kids computer trades and whatnot, and I'm still a firm believer in teach kids, have those auto shop classes, have the woodworking classes, get your a great way to bond as a family is to get them to do what you like to do, you talked
about car shows. That's something you'll always carry in your heart.
Exactly. And all my brothers know how to work on cars. I even back before computers took over cars, I could give my car a tune-up, things like that,
Timing
and I don't know, I just really like to encourage people to get your kids involved in doing what you like to do. Get some hands-on. It's my dad still talks about, he wants my grandson to tear apart an engine for him in the garage to get him into that. And like I said, that's kind of how I learned things too. And just a great thing as as people, and teaching your kids what to do with their future. So
that's really good wisdom.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much for being a part of this. And for now, we'll say goodbye from Corona, California, and we'll send it back to Studio A in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. Okay, back to Carlisle and Studio A. The answer to this week's trivia question is Travis Pastrana. He was born October 8th, 1983, and he is an American professional motorsports competitor. You probably know him from the X Games. He's been in motocross, freestyle, regular motocross, supercross. He has had quite a bit of involvement in rally racing, Nitro Circus. He competed in the NASCAR Nationwide Series. He's driven for Roush Fenway, Monster Jam, and Subaru Rally Team. So he's done a little bit of everything. So that is today's answer, Travis Pastrana. So excited to be sharing with you that I have interviews lined up for the next 2 weeks. Doing some travel here in the regional area to meet some really cool car guys, local guys that have done great things with their vehicles. That's coming up. Episode 50 is going to be focused on this podcast turning 1 year old. And with that to celebrate, we're going to be doing some laps at Watkins Glen. So stay tuned for some videos, some Instagram, and we'll detail all of that out. And we are right on the heels of the 2019 Carlisle events season. Spring Carlisle and the Collector Car Auction is coming up April 25th through 27th. It is the granddaddy of them all, the biggest show of the entire calendar year and the biggest swap meet you'll likely find anywhere. It's going to be a great spring, so much to share with you. Stay tuned, more to come. So for now, I'll say drive well, be well, and take care.